What is forcible touching in New York? Forcible touching is a serious offense under New York law. It specifically refers to the intentional and inappropriate touching of another person's intimate parts, often done without their consent. This law was introduced to combat sexual misconduct, especially in crowded spaces such as public transportation, where incidents are more likely to occur. New York legislators amended the law in 2015 to specifically criminalize forcible touching on public transportation, such as subways and buses. This amendment was introduced as a deterrent to those who might take advantage of cramped spaces to commit inappropriate acts. However, wrongful accusations of forcible touching can also have severe, long-term consequences, making legal representation essential. The legality of forcible touching in New York under New York Penal Code Section 130.52, forcible touching is defined as the intentional, non-consensual touching of someone's intimate parts with the intent to degrade, abuse, or seek sexual gratification. This crime is considered a Class A misdemeanor, meaning that if convicted, the defendant could face up to 1 year in jail. It is essential to note that physical harm or injury to the victim is not required to be charged with forcible touching. New York law divides forcible touching into two categories. General forcible touching. This applies to any inappropriate physical contact with intent to degrade or gratify sexual desires. Forcible touching on public transportation. This provision specifically addresses inappropriate touching that takes place on buses, trains, and subways. The consequences for individuals accused of forcible touching can be life-altering. Criminal charges, probation, and even the requirement to register as a sex offender are potential outcomes, depending on the nature of the crime and the age of the victim. Definition and process of forcible touching. Forcible touching, as defined by the law, involves deliberate, non-consensual touching of another person's intimate parts, whether or not either person is clothed. This touching can include actions like pinching, squeezing, or grabbing, and the intent behind it is critical to determining guilt. The prosecution must prove that the accused acted intentionally and without legitimate purpose. Some key elements of forcible touching include: intentional act. The touching must be deliberate. Lack of consent. The victim did not agree to the contact. Purpose. The act was carried out to degrade, abuse, or for the sexual gratification of the offender. It is important to understand that touching done in crowded spaces, like subways, may sometimes be accidental. The law specifies that the touching must be intentional and without legitimate purpose, to ensure innocent contact is not prosecuted. Defenses, such as mistaken identity or lack of intent, can also be used to challenge such charges. Seeking the assistance of a lawyer who understands these defenses is critical. Potential penalties for forcible touching. Forcible touching is classified as a Class A misdemeanor, and a conviction may result in up to 1 year in jail. Additional penalties can include community service, probation for up to 3 years, or a combination of jail time and probation. Though the initial penalty may seem less severe, a conviction carries serious long-term consequences, including a criminal record and mandatory sex offender registration, especially if the victim is a minor. If you or someone you know is accused of forcible touching, it's crucial to consult with a qualified attorney. At Lebedin Kofman LLP, we understand how damaging these charges can be. We can help you explore defense options, protect your rights, and work toward the best possible outcome. Call us today at 516-212-4209 and visit us at 600 Old Country Road No. 205, Garden City, New York, 11514, United States for a consultation.